It is time for Silver and Black today on your Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, Raider Nation. We hope you're having a good one. Still enjoying the win, but now it's time to turn the page. It's time to look at the Los Angeles Rams. The Raiders-Rams tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. So they will be in a primetime game against the Rams, who just signed a new quarterback. You may have heard Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about that. I am Scott Branson. As always, I am joined by my broadcast partner, and that is Mr. Mo Moten. Of course, Mo is national NFL writer at Bleacher Report. He is also the Raiders columnist at sportsnot.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Mo Moten, Moemoton. You can also follow me at LV Gully, the show, SNB Today. And Mo, I sent it to you this morning. Yes, Silver and Black Today is now on TikTok. And
oh, gosh.
Mo is already an overnight sensation.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, there's reposting. They're making memes out of him. They're making him dance. They're doing all kinds. No, I'm just kidding. But it could happen. It could happen. But we are up on TikTok, so you can check us out there, as well as subscribe and hit the notifications bell on YouTube. Of course, YouTube chat over in the corner or on the side of the screen over there, right there next to Mo, is going crazy as always. The guys and gals in the chat is always fun. So we appreciate you guys being with us. Go ahead,
Scott.
Mo. Yeah.
Do you remember when Bill Belichick called Snapchat Snapface? He tried to pretend like he didn't know what Snapchat was.
Yes, I remember.
I'm honestly not on TikTok. That is
Yeah.
That is behind my generation. I had no interest in being on TikTok. And when you sent me that message, I literally did the face palm. I know I said the emoji, face palm emoji, but I immediately put my face in my hands like, oh gosh, I'm on TikTok.
Well, here's the thing: is I had a listener tweet and said, "Hey," because we tweeted it out from the show saying follow us on TikTok, and somebody thinks like me, and this is probably what I would have said if I wasn't in the business and had been watching a show, said something to the impact or effect of, "Hey, I'm not 15. Sorry, I can't." Which I understand, but we do understand the reason we are now there with short videos that link back, of course, to episodes of this podcast is because, believe it or not, 25 to 34, biggest growing usage of TikTok. And we have a lot of listeners in that 30 plus, especially range, maybe not so much under 30. If you're under 30, shout out in the chat or make comments below so we know you're there. But clearly it's there. So we're there. You know, it's fantastic. And I can't wait to make you a star.
So I guess I got to get on TikTok or Talk, whatever you want to call it.
Talk. Ticky talk. Yeah.
Tickety talk.
Tickety talk. That's right. Oh, we are not aging ourselves at all. All right. We are back here talking Raiders football. If you don't subscribe to the podcast, do that now. You don't have to subscribe on TikTok if you're not there, but go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever you get it. Mo, we look at this Raiders team, and again, it's time to turn the page. It's been great. 3 games in a row. This team has played great. We talked about yesterday on Tuesday, we talked about great defensive play. We saw the reemergence, or I should say the first time emergence as a Raider of Chandler Jones, the center of that defensive front, just rolling on it with the addition of Jerry Tillery and, of course, Bilal Nichols, who's kind of lived up to the hype that we gave him, not his fault, that we gave him in the preseason. And then, of course, the offense, Davante Adams, Josh Jacobs, the offensive line playing great right now. They're all putting it together. But now they're trying to go on the road again to play the Los Angeles Rams. Everybody's looking at the Rams, calling them the Lambs because of all the injuries and because of the down season they had after winning the Super Bowl. But going on the road is a tough game, even if there's going to be a lot of Raider fans there. You look at this.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road, right? That's right. So just down I-5 or 15 to I-5. But if you look at this game and think about, can the Raiders put together 4 straight? They're now in the position where we talked about the P word last episode, but they kind of have to win out if they want to have a good chance of actually trying to make the playoffs. It's a difficult task. How does this game shape up for you? Is this one that you say, hey, the Raiders playing the way they are have a good opportunity to go Los Angeles and sneak out of there to this bare bones Rams team?
I give them a good chance to win. Of course, we're we're kind of early with this episode, so the betting column hasn't come out yet on
It's
Bleacher
coming
Report,
out. It's coming out later
but it's
today.
coming. And I will tell you that heavy Raiders favorites going. Well, of course they're favored in Vegas, but a lot of us are backing the Raiders. I won't completely spoil it, but I don't want to say the Raiders should win this game, but they are rightfully favored by a touchdown. I believe, no Matthew Stafford. I believe Aaron Donald is going to be out. No Cooper Kupp. I'm not saying this is a game you overlook the Rams, because they actually gave the Seattle Seahawks a challenge. That game came down, I believe, to late in that fourth quarter. The Seahawks had the battle with the Rams because the Rams were able to get their run game going. That's something that the Raiders have to be careful about. Though the Raiders have been stout against the run in the last 3 weeks, I don't think they've allowed a 100-yard rusher in that span. Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, those guys are coming along, and the Rams are starting to find a way to at least stay competitive in these football games. So Raiders can't overlook the Rams, but I expect the Raiders to win this game.
Certainly. I think the fans feel the same way, and I'm sure we'll see all the TV prognosticators pick the Raiders. It's interesting how a lot of folks have come around on this team. If you look at the fact that as bad as the 2-7 start was, they are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, and we talked about all those reasons yesterday on the show. But to sustain it is what makes you survive and excel in the NFL. Excuse me, sorry about that. Can they sustain it is the question. We know still, I mean, let's be real here. We know they have deficiencies in talent level on offense, on offensive line, on the defensive side, especially defensive backfield. Can they sustain this over the course of the next 5 games, Mo? I mean, you look at their schedule, and again, you can't look more than one game ahead, but at the same time, it stacks up nice for them, except against the Chiefs at the end of the season. But even the Chiefs seem to maybe... they got beat by the Bengals on Sunday. They seem to be losing some of the luster. If you're the Raiders, this is nothing but like it was last year, right? Where you have to just focus one game at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself, because the mountain to crawl up is very, very tall.
Well, I did compare it to last year, and I think one of our listeners, John Davis, agreed that it feels a lot like last year when the Raiders went on that run. Now, of course, this run would be a lot longer than last year. The Raiders, I believe, had to win 4 straight. You're coming from 2-7 to 10-7 seems. I know I play around and I say 10-7 is still mathematically possible, but do I actually believe the Raiders are going to go 10-7? Very, very slim chance. 8 in a row. It's not impossible, because but it's you got the 49ers and the Chiefs at the end of the schedule. So as a lot of fans have said on Twitter, let's take this one game at a time and look at this, where they are right now. With the way Davante Adams and Derek Carr are playing, with the way Josh Jacobs is playing, with the way that defense is playing, I'd say they can rattle off a few more wins, and make this, a 5-6 game win streak. So I wouldn't put it past Raiders on that front. But I will say this, that once you start to play, New England, who's familiar with Josh McDaniels, it can get tough. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not an easy opponent. Kenny Pickett, I know he's not throwing for a lot of yards, but he's learning as a rookie. That Steelers defense is tightening up because TJ Watt is not healthy. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end. I think as the games go on, as the season goes on, the Raiders are going to need Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller to play a role in that offense to get the Raiders over the hump, because they've been able to get by without those two guys. As the competition toughens up, I think they're going to need both those guys to be productive.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you also look at these teams they're facing, with the exception of the Rams. You look at the Patriots, you look at the Steelers on Christmas Eve, okay, a road game on a holiday. Both those teams are in the playoff race, including the Steelers.
Yes.
Right? So these teams, it's not like the Rams where you look at it and you say, okay, yeah, I mean, look, all professional football teams have good players, and so every game is tough. But you look at the Rams and you say, yeah, their season's over. There's just at 3-9, it's just not, they're not going anywhere, okay? But you look at the other two, and all they need is a couple wins to get into deep and heavy into the playoff race, especially on the wild card, obviously. And that is incentive for them to play, and their coaching staffs to go all out. And so I think the Raiders, they're going to face 2 teams, in those 2 teams in 2 and 3 weeks away, that are in the exact same position they are.
Look, I know I wasn't on the show with you, Scott, but I'm old enough to remember the Raiders losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars when they were up
Yes.
by 3 possessions. I'm old enough to remember the Raiders losing to the Jeff Saturday-led Indianapolis Colts, who got their doors blown off by the Cowboys a few days ago. So I'm not looking at even the Rams, who are out of the playoff race, so to speak. I'm not even looking at the Rams like, okay, easy win. I actually expect the Rams to be competitive for most of the game. Now it was up to the Raiders to pull away, kind of like how they did with Houston Texans, where you have a team that's kind of on the downside, but you pull away at the end and you have a big play, a turnover, a pick six, something of that nature. I could see that happening, but fans listening to me right now, don't be surprised if they're in a battle through the first 2-3 quarters on the game on Thursday.
Yes, absolutely. Before we head to a break, just a reminder, again, send in your mail questions. Obviously, after the win, there wasn't any complaining, but we love it. Because of the weird week with the Thursday night game tomorrow, we're doing a little bit of mailbag today at the end of the show. But make sure you send in your questions, your comments about the Raiders, about the show. We appreciate it. Mail@silverandblacktoday.com. Mail@silverandblacktoday.com. We're going to step aside for our first break right now. When we come back, we are going to get up to date on some Raiders transactions that happened late yesterday, some movement up on that defensive line with some comings and goings in Henderson. You're with Mo Moten and Skakkel Branson. This is Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey original podcast covering all things Las Vegas Raiders. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Welcome back. Silver and Black Today, the Wednesday edition, special edition. We are still going to get some mail. We usually do mailbag edition. Mo and I love doing that. And Mo hasn't had a chance, only one chance last week since he's been back to do it. We love it. And so we're going to get to it in the third segment today because of the game tomorrow. And then a reminder, myself, Mo, and Murph with our Voice of the Fan segment, which has become very, very popular. We knew it would. That's why Murph is on the show. And he will be with us as well tomorrow night, Thursday night, after Thursday night football. That's right. So for those of us on the Eastern time zone, that's late. For you guys on the West Coast, right after the game, you'll be able to check out our live post-game show here on YouTube. And, of course, the podcast audio version goes up right after that show ends, so you can get it in the middle of the night. If you want to listen to it, you can listen to it on the way to work on Friday. So make sure you do that. Also, follow Mo on Twitter, MOEMOTON. I am at LV Gully. The show is SNB Today, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. Okay, Mo, some transactions late yesterday for the Raiders. They signed defensive tackle Kyle Pecco, who we're familiar with, obviously, in and out of the roster there, to the active roster. To make room, the Raiders have said goodbye to Kendall Vickers. So, obviously, the play of the defensive interior with Cleveland Ferrell, with Jerry Tillery, with Bilal Nichols, I think they're kind of settled on what they wanted to do. So Kendall Vickers, who's been there for a few years and really did a good job when he needed to, has been let go. And they've also signed Austin Calitro to the practice squad. He came off the New York Giants practice squad this year, 2022. He played for the Bengals last year during their Super Bowl run as well. 11 starts, 89 tackles, and 1.5 sacks. So just another guy for the practice squad there. But Mo, a little bit of movement there. I think that shows you the confidence in that Jerry Tillery coming in there and Bilal Nichols playing up to his potential. They like what they're seeing for the rest of the way.
The other thing is Kendall Vickers has missed, I believe, the last 3 games with a back injury. Maybe there's some issue. Maybe they think he may not be healthy enough to contribute at an optimal level. So you go with a healthier Kyle Pecco and what you have at in that position group. So yeah, it makes sense. Not a major move, but again, I guess they feel a lot better with Jerry Tillery making an impact. As you know, as a lot of people have read on Sportsnet, I wrote an article about Chandler Jones' breakout 3-sack performance against the Chargers, and he gets credit for that, but it's partially because Jerry Tillery is able to make a push along with Bilal Nichols on the inside.
So, Mo, you look at this Rams team that the Raiders are going to face tomorrow night on national TV. Of course, we know about Matthew Stafford. and the offense and him being out and injury and all that jazz. But you look at that defense, the Rams defense, not great, but they still have great players there, and they still are competitive. You talked about in the first segment that you expect this game to be close. What does this Rams team do on both sides of the ball that could create some matchup issues and some issues for the Raiders overall as they face Los Angeles tomorrow night in SoFi Stadium?
Well, as I briefly mentioned, they've discovered their run game, which is really Sean McVay's bread and butter. He usually actually runs his offense through off of the run game. They haven't been able to get that going early in the season. As I said, Cam Akers, who's had some issues with the team, thought at one point he would be traded, not traded. Kyron Williams is back there as a backup. Those guys are getting it going on the ground. So the Raiders are going to have to bear down and make sure that Cam Akers doesn't break one open or Kyron Williams doesn't catch one out of the backfield, because their running backs can be dynamic together. On the defensive side of the ball, you always have to circle Jalen Ramsey. Where is he going to line up? He's basically the proverbial chess piece. He can line up in the slot, he can line up on the outside. So he may not be lined up across from Davante Adams on every snap, even though I think that's probably a good idea with the way Davante Adams is playing. Have your best defensive back, your best cover man against the Raiders, the best pass catcher, but he can move around the formation. So you have to be you have to know where he is on the field, because if you make a mistake, he can make a big play on the back end.
Yeah, it's and I think you're right about this point. People look at records and you dismiss a team, but it doesn't tell the whole story, obviously. And I think that the Rams are going to be a matchup. So there's some matchup issues there based on the Raiders and what they've been doing. But this Raiders team, with all the confidence they have, with the play they're getting on offense from Davante Adams, I don't expect, and we haven't heard a peep, that Hunter Renfrow or Darren Waller will be back. Why would they on an early week? I think the better chances of them coming back are next Sunday against the Patriots. You look at this Raiders team, Mo, and you look offensively, I'm still really concerned. We haven't heard much about Josh Jacobs this week. Of course, the calf injury the last 2 weeks has not prevented him from having stellar games. But on this short week, we talked about it on Tuesday, but I'm still concerned about that. And I think it's going to be another game time decision for them. And perhaps we might see a different running back, especially on the short week, handle the load. Maybe Zamir White finally gets the carries that we've thought about. But your point about that running back and the fact that they haven't developed another one certainly puts more pressure to make sure Jacobs plays.
The other thing is, I believe Amir Abdullah got dinged up in the last game. Mm-hmm. So it's tough when you have a workhorse running back, because if that guy gets nicked up or he can't play, then what are you left with? And I compare it to the Titans. Remember, I believe it was last year, Derek Henry went down. He had to have foot surgery, right? That's not Josh Jacobs' situation. But it goes to my point that after Derek Henry was out, the Titans were still able to win because they had a good collective football team. But they had to change things up. They couldn't run the same offense they ran with Derrick Henry because he's such a different type of player. He's like a freight train at like 240 something pounds. And they had to kind of change things up. So the Raiders have found their winning formula. But what happens if they have to change up that formula? Do they have a switch up pitch? Is Zamir White good enough to handle 5 to 10 carries if necessary? Is Amir Abdullah healthy enough to handle 5 to 10 carries if necessary? Can you use the short passing game to mimic the run game? As I said in the previous show, that you could do that, but it takes away from the physical nature of your advantage. The Raiders have been super, super physical in the trenches, and that's how they've been winning games inside out. Now, if you don't have Jacobs out there, you have to find a different route. Now, Davante Adams is out there, but he then becomes your focal point of the offense, and then you don't have another guy out there who's as reliable as him, because Hunter Renfrow and Waller are hurt, and Jacobs, nicked up.
And that's what, to me, concerns me about the game too. If for some reason, again, we hope it's not the case, but if Josh Jacobs is limited, even if he plays and he's limited and they can't get him out there for as many snaps as he's used to, your short passing game is kind of non-existent right now, right? I mean, yes, you have Mac Hollins, you mentioned him, but the Hunter Renfrow specialty with those short slant routes, and of course Darren Waller. If you have that full complement of weapons, and Josh Jacobs is hurting, then at least you have those options. And you talked about Amir Abdullah being hurt. What do they do if Josh Jacobs is limited or hurt, and they have to go to a more short passing offense? Of course, Foster Moreau's there, but who else might we see involved in that offense to make up for the lack of a running game if it happens?
I want to see if they're going to call up one of their backs, Britton Brown, they drafted.
Yeah.
It's weird because I've been saying this for weeks that, yes, Josh Jacobs has been incredible, but you have to prepare for that emergency. I'm not saying take a significant number of carries away from Josh Jacobs, but have a second guy ready. And to this point now, they've been winning, so no one's complained about it. But if something goes down, what is plan B? Because I really can't tell you right now because, as I said, Zamir White has been a non-factor. Yes, he has a couple of carries here and there where he looks decent, and that offensive line is run blocking very well. But who is I would assume that the Rays would just go pass heavy. I would assume that Josh Jacobs reverts back to what he was doing at the beginning of the season. Even though Hunter Renfrow and Waller are not healthy, I would assume that he just goes pass heavy, puts the ball in Derek Carr's hands and say, you're going to have to win this game. Because the Rams, believe it or not, the Rams run defense, I believe, is still top 10 across the league. So they have a strong run defense, even without Aaron Donald. Now, I know the Seattle Seahawks lost their top running back last week, so he wasn't able to play a full game. But the Rams have a tough defensive front. The way you attack the Rams is on the back end. Ramsey, as good as he is, he can't be everywhere on the field. So wherever he's not, that's where you're throwing the football. So that's when guys like Mac Hollins come into play. I know Raiders fans are going to roll their eyes a bit, but Keelan Cole, I know that he's underwhelming, but he may have to step up if Davante Adams is seeing double coverage with the safety over the top. DJ Turner, he's got speed. Foster Moreau, step up being the starting tight end there, assuming he's okay, because I know he got dinged up last game. Those guys are going to have to step up and attack the Rams' pass defense because that's the weakness of their unit.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Raiders didn't go sign another tight end because Foster Moreau, the last 2 games, has missed a couple plays because of injury. Thank goodness he didn't have a concussion or anything like that. But they were down to 1 tight end. And so you would think that they would do that, but clearly I think that's a good sign, actually. I think that's a sign that points to Darren Waller coming back for that Patriots game, but we'll have to see how that goes. All right, we're going to take our final break here on this Wednesday show. We're going to get to some mail. We had some tweets that Mo forwarded and retweeted so that we could answer them. We promised our viewers and our listeners that we would answer those. So we're going to get to some of those. Also, Mo, did you see the smoke show sitting next to Mark Davis at the game on Sunday? Did you see that clip?
I saw it. One of our loyal listeners, Sashi, said, of course, Mark Davis is having a fantastic day. Look who was sitting next to him.
Well,
it was one of the funny retweets.
We have found out who that young woman is. And so we're going to talk about that too when we come back, just because it's fun and it's Wednesday and you're almost there to game day on a Thursday with the Raiders. By the way, how many Raider fans are going to call in sick Friday if they win? I think a few.
About 40%. Stay home, have some barbecue chicken.
Oh,
enjoy yourself,
barbecue chicken. That's right. Barbecue chicken and maybe some lamb. Maybe some lamb.
Yeah. Lamb is actually pretty good. I've had lamb before.
In fact, Mo, I will tell you, for Christmas dinner this year, finally got a hold of my grandmother's recipe. We're having leg of lamb.
Oh, so is that a foreshadowing?
Could be.
Of
that lamb could be in Los Angeles.
Foreshadowing of what the Rays could be snacking on Thursday night.
Oh, look at that, Mo. Man, you're swift. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will get to your mail, your tweets, and we will tell you about the blonde sitting next to Mark Davis and who he is, and answer the question, are they dating? I mean, I can cut my hair that way. I'm married, though. But anyway, we're here on Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Original Podcast. We'll be back right after these messages. Take care. Here we are, the home stretch on a Wednesday. Raider Nation, tomorrow's game day. You don't have to wait till Sunday. You get Sunday off this week. Yes, you get to watch your Raiders tomorrow night against the Los Angeles Rams, SoFi Stadium, the Raiders' vacation home. don't have to deal with Charger fans, but you have to deal with the other yellow and blue fans, which is the Rams fans. I expect a huge takeover again at SoFi Stadium for the primetime game. This podcast, by the way, make sure you subscribe to it. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can find us as well. Mo Moten, he is the national NFL writer at Bleacher Report. He is also the columnist covering the Raiders for sportsnot.com as well. All right, Mo, we talked about it before the break. We're watching the game, and of course, they go to Mark Davis in the owner's box. This time, he's not eating chicken wings, which might have been appropriate with the whole Keenan Allen thing. But instead, they fixate on it, and they stay with the shot a little too long, in my view, for owner shot. It went on for quite a while. And the reason was because he was next to a very attractive young lady. And now we know who that lady is. If you're listening out there and you didn't see this story, kudos to the New York Post, because they always are tracking down. Forget the Hunter Biden laptop stuff. Let's talk about the mystery blonde next to Mark Davis. That's the big news, right? So they did, and for those of you watching, I'm going to put it on the screen here so you can see it. And for those of you listening, I'll read through it. But here it is. Mystery blonde next to Raiders owner Mark Davis identified. Yes, they can't identify other big criminals, but they can find out who the blonde next to the NFL owner is. So here it is. I'm going to read this quote. The mystery blonde who was sitting next to Raiders owner Mark Davis during Sunday's win over the Chargers. And it's funny because in the copy, Mo, if you can see, Chargers is lowercase. It's kind of funny. It's a copy editing mistake. But otherwise, her name is Hayden Hopkins. Hayden Hopkins. She's a Las Vegas-based professional Cirque du Soleil performer. Okay? Despite the speculation, Hopkins became the talk of Twitter after the CBS cameras captured her seated alongside Davis in a private suite at Allegiant Stadium. At the time, she took to her Instagram story to share a photo of the field from her seat, which showed her wearing jeans and silver stilettos, which she borrowed from Mo. No, kidding. Despite speculation that the two are dating, their relationship status is platonic, according to Hopkins. And I have a picture up there. But here's the thing, Mo, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen so people can see us and Miss Hopkins. Oops, I got the order wrong here, though. That wouldn't help. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And so I'm gonna show this if I can get this right. A, B, and C. Look at that. Okay. So look, Mo, we're in the box next to them. No, kidding. But here she is. You saw the picture on CBS, but look at this one. She's pretty nimble. She's limber. If you're looking at the screen, she's a performer in Cirque du Soleil, which is all about aerobatics. And it shows a picture of her on Jimmy Kimmel in April 2019. And then it shows a picture of her in 2020 in a bikini. And she really needs some avocado smoothies and maybe a couple hamburgers. A little too skinny for me there. But anyway, this is Hayden Hopkins. This is the girl sitting next to Mark Davis. And now Mo will talk about it for 2 minutes. Go. You've been so vocal about this story. I wanted to make sure you got some time in.
I mean, what can you say? When you got money, you can pull people like that. And although they say it's platonic.
Yeah.
I wonder who's the source on that. Is it Mark Davis's people saying it's platonic? Is it her people saying it's platonic?
Yeah.
But I want to get back to your comment about her photo.
Yeah.
We're a fan of the thick version of women on this show. And you said she needs some avocado smoothies and some hamburgers. I would agree. I'm not judging here because
she's a beautiful woman.
Right. Don't get us wrong. She's attractive. Different strokes for different folks. I like a little pudding.
Oh,
I like a little extra. You know, let me just be full disclosure.
You like a little more to love, is what you're saying.
It gets cold in the winter in New York City, okay? It ain't Vegas out here. It ain't 80 degrees in New York City. It gets cold, okay?
Yeah.
We wear big puffy coats.
Yes.
A guy like me needs meat to cuddle up on because, my bones get cold when it drops below 20 degrees.
I'm with you, man.
That although she's,
beautiful
nimble
lady.
and she could do a lot of things there. That's great. But when it gets down to it and it's midnight and it's below 20 in New York City, that's not going to help me a lot. her
Yes.
putting her leg up over her head, that's only going to go but so far for me.
Yeah, and for the listeners, I know you can't see this, but you can check out the YouTube video. But this picture, and so I agree with you there. Okay, and she's a gorgeous lady, and she's a dancer, right? Cirque du Soleil. If you've never seen a Cirque show, these people are unbelievably talented, and not only that, but they are so limber, they look like rubber. The way they stretch and the way they do it, and the picture I'm showing now, like that picture to me, and this is a family show. But, you know, I would like to stretch like that. The way she's stretching is remarkable, and that's what they do. They're acrobats. But go ahead,
Scott. She's definitely a summertime girl. When it's warm and it's hot, that's when you have that on your arm. Now it's appropriate for Mark Davis again because he's in Vegas where it's warm all year round.
Yes.
But once November hits, I would say, look, we're gonna have to swap her out for someone with a little, maybe 20 or 30 pounds heavier. Yeah. Shout out to the heavier women out there watching the show. You are in demand once it gets cold. Even when it's warm, you're in demand. But especially in the winter, you have a good meal, some meat on the bones, someone to cuddle with, even when the covers are cold. It's perfect. But Mark Davis, I will say, Mark Davis, you're doing pretty well. Don't listen to me because you're in Vegas. You're living the life. Do your thing, Mark.
Yeah, and trust me, I'm no male model. I'm very self-aware. But Mark Davis, wearing white jeans and a white T-shirt like every day of his life, driving a Mini Cooper, pulling up on this young gal. Good for him. Bravo.
He's doing well.
Platonic or not, man.
He's definitely doing well. Yeah,
I'll give him that. I don't know if he can run a football team yet. We'll see with this new regime, but it looks like he's on the right track there, and it certainly looks like he's in the right track. By the way, the Post always pulls the worst pictures because there's like a minute of video there, and they have a picture of her with a water bottle, drinking the water bottle. That's not on accident, by the way, folks. That's the Post. You know the Post, Mo, since you live in New York.
Yep.
They do that kind of stuff. So anyway, we are
really quick though.
Yes, go.
Ladies, if you can't stretch your leg over your head, it's okay. If you can make a good, casserole or a good meal, that's good enough. You don't have to do all this acrobatic stuff and put it, twisting your arm, double jointedness. You don't have to do all that. Just make a good meal, and you're in demand. That's all you need to do.
Or have a law degree so Mo and I can stay home and do podcasts full time. That would work too.
Or have a job in sports, Women who have jobs in sports. Women who have jobs in sports, great.
Oh yeah, a lot of them. A lot of great journalists in the world of sports that are women. And we have them on the show all the time. Cynthia Freeland, to name one, but certainly so many. All right, we're going to get to the mail now, Mo. We're just talking about male, female. Now we're talking about MAIL. And we got a couple messages here on email that we're going to get to, and then we're also going to get to a couple tweets. This is our good friend, Gary Harkenreader. Gary writes in, I don't know, probably every other show, donated some cool Raiders classic out-of-print books that we're going to donate to Raider Dad, by the way. That'll be coming soon so that they can continue to fund the charity. But here's what Gary says, Mo. He says, to repeat myself, the Raiders didn't bring... This is about Derek Carr, of course, because we didn't talk about him yesterday, so somebody's got to talk about him. To repeat myself, the Raiders did not bring in Davante Adams to move on from Derek Carr. Think Raiders draft a QB, but in the mid-rounds. I liked Levis, but I keep coming back to the fact that McDaniels doesn't want his quarterback to run. Quarterbacks I've watched this college season that might be a fit are Bo Nix or Michael Pettis. I believe there's a 3-year window to bring along a quarterback from scratch. I'm sure there are other quarterbacks out there, but they have to be very smart and teachable / coachable. It's also important that they can throw the deep ball. That is from Gary. So he brings up a couple good points there, which I think fit in with where you and I have been the last couple weeks at least, you longer than me, whereas Derek Carr will be back for the next at least 2 years. He has 3 years on the contract, and they're going to definitely have to develop a young quarterback. What about his point that Josh McDaniels doesn't like running quarterbacks? So is there something to that based on the fact that in New England, they didn't have that because he wasn't the GM there. He was the offensive coordinator. He wasn't Bill Belichick either. Do you think that with his system, he'd be open to that, or does Gary have a good point there?
Gary has a point to a certain extent, and I know where that comes from. I believe during the press conference, Josh McDaniels said basically. So I think someone asked him about having a quarterback run. He said he prefers quarterback to be in the pocket. I'm paraphrasing, but I think there was some misconception there because there's a difference, as I've explained multiple times. There's a difference between a quarterback who runs and a quarterback who uses his mobility to extend plays and runs when he has to. And I think
Josh
the
Allen.
latter. Right. I think the latter is what most head coaches would want, because just in case if your offensive line is not up to par or if you have a leaky offensive line, then the quarterback's mobility can make up for that. But to go back to Gary Harker-Reeder's email, I could see the Raiders drafting a quarterback in the middle rounds. I've said that just because Derek Carr comes back for year 10 doesn't mean they don't draft a quarterback. And even with the Patriots, when Josh McDaniels was there, the Patriots had a habit of drafting quarterbacks in the 4th round. Stidham was one of them. After Josh McDaniels left, they drafted Bailey Zappi. So him coming from that Patriots cocoon, I believe he's going to have a similar idea where you're going to but he's going to want to have a rotation of young quarterbacks to develop. And I believe he said this during his press conference or one of his early press conferences. He said it's important to have a developmental quarterback just in case something happens to your starter. You have a guy you're confident to go in and run the system. But I will say, Gary, you may want to temper down your expectations of getting Penix because he's going back to school, I believe.
Yeah.
So he'll be back at Washington for another year. So if you're looking at Bo Nix, who I think our guy Evan Groda just probably likes, I have to look into him, of course. Of course, he looked a lot better at Oregon than he did his 3 years, I believe, at Auburn. So he's someone to circle and look at. But there's plenty of time to dig into draft quarterbacks. I don't have a firm description or evaluation of any quarterbacks at this point.
Well, and also Hooker out of Tennessee, by the way, is another guy I think with the knee injury could skip down and could be available. And I'll tell you what, at this time when you're about 3 years out from needing a guy to get in there and start for you after Derek Carr, that would be the end of his contract. Then you can take a flyer, even though you don't like. I mean, 3rd and 4th round, you get good players in those rounds, right? I mean, look at Max Crosby, a 4th round pick. But if you go for a quarterback there because you really like them and you think you can develop them, and it doesn't work out, it doesn't kill you like it does if you take them number 5 overall in the draft, right? So I think that's actually not a bad position, which is another argument for keeping Derek Carr.
Another thing I will say is that about the mobile quarterback thing, and I know the Patriots are probably in dire straits in this situation because they moved on from Tom Brady, so they had to, bridge the gap, so to speak. But they did sign Cam Newton, who's a mobile quarterback. I wouldn't say he's a running quarterback, but he uses his legs a lot. And that's what they were able to win a lot of games with him. Now it fizzled out at the end, but Josh McDaniels was able to kind of amend his system for Cam Newton's skill set. So I wouldn't say that Josh McDaniels is as rigid as a lot of people think he is. I think he can adjust to whoever's at the quarterback position. But of course, Derek Carr is your starter. But as far as backups are concerned, I wouldn't rule out quarterbacks who have a tendency to use their legs, because that's where the league is headed. If you look at the top quarterbacks in the league right now, a lot of them can use their legs. That's how the position has evolved. So you have to evolve with the way the league is evolving, with the way the position is evolving. You can't stay back in the 1970s, the 1980s, and think that's going to work in today's NFL.
No, right. I mean, and I think you look at the guy the Raiders just beat. And I know Raider fans like to complain about Justin Herbert, but he's another big guy who can move. He's not a running quarterback. He's a big guy who can move out of the pocket and use his legs. And that's why the Raiders were able to stop him, because they didn't let him do that against them like he did against the Cardinals in the big comeback the week before. And then again, I mentioned Josh Allen. You see what Josh Allen does, just even running out of the pocket towards the sideline. That amazing pass he threw running out of bounds for a touchdown last week is another great example of that. So some really good points.
I will say this: when you read these draft scouting reports on quarterbacks, not having mobility is a knock. It's considered a negative.
Right.
Now, so if you're a statue, that's not a good thing. Teams want you to at least be able to move.
Yeah, no question. Okay. Thank you again, Gary. We appreciate your patronage and your continued loyalty and support of the show. And of course, your donations, which we will talk about on another show. He was getting nervous because I got him. He's like, did you get him? Did you get him? I got him. We're going to get them to the right folks, and I know it'll benefit and get some kids to a game. All right, we move on to Donald Bird. Donald, his second question in as many weeks. Donald says, hey, I'm sure the top of discussion will be Josh Jacobs again if we bring him back next year. And Mo, this is popular. I mean, Raider fans continue to talk about Josh Jacobs nonstop because of the year he's having. Donald says, what do you think at this point? Because I cannot see Jacobs in another uniform. Again, that's Donald Bird. We talked about it yesterday, but Mo, it's going to be hard. I think that because of what he's meant to this team this year, I thought he was goner, not just because of the decline of the fifth-year option. I just didn't think it was going to happen. But he has really changed mine. He's changed the scope of this. The Darren Waller injury and the fact that he's not available, I think, as we mentioned yesterday, could lead to a trade. And then suddenly your money problems go away. And you mentioned something yesterday, too, about the salary cap going up. So we just don't know. So, I mean, would you put this at 50-50 or would you put this at like a 70-30 he could be back?
By the way, quick note, I read somewhere on Tuesday that salary cap could exceed $230 million. So just keep a note on that. But I know a lot of people think this way, and they think once you have an opinion, you can't change that opinion. Even if you get new information, you cannot change your opinion. So whenever you have whatever prediction or projection you had, you have to stick with that projection no matter what happens, which is the dumbest thing ever, because if you get new information, obviously that could change or sway your opinion. Now, I started off the season saying Josh Jacobs is gone no matter what. If he underperforms, if he exceeds expectations, he's gone because of the money. Thinking about it now, the way the offense is set up, and because of Darren Waller's injury, and I feel like Darren Waller is not reliable, despite what people may say about Darren Waller's track record. He, right now, as we speak today, not a reliable playmaker. Is he special when he's healthy? Yes. But he has been on the field. Hunter Renfrow dinged up. And when you're looking at the way the Raiders offense has run with Josh Jacobs performing at a high level, how could you let that player walk away? Mm-hmm. And I would say right now I'm 60-40 that he stays. If you look at some of the other top running backs who have stayed with their teams, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb. So teams are open to re-signing homegrown talent. As far as if it's a special running back, they are open to giving that running back a second contract. Now, again, we don't know what Josh Jacobs' contract expectations are, what he's looking for, because that will decide if he's back or not ultimately. But right now, as the emailer just said, I don't see how they move on from Josh Jacobs with the way they're winning. Because if it's, what's the old saying? If it's not broke, don't fix it. In this case, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And if you can pay for it, keep it.
That's
because right now the Raiders are winning games with Josh Jacobs running wild. Now we all know he has history of getting nicked up and having some injuries, but this past offseason he worked out on his own, apparently took care of his body.
Sure did.
He's still battling injuries, but he's been able to tough it out, and he's like a tank out there. He's not going down, he's not coming out for a handful of plays as we're used to seeing him. Now the season's not over. I will say this, if he gets through the season healthy, I think there's a strong possibility he could come back. Now, if he gets hurt, all bets are off, because then the Raiders could be looking at this like, okay, we ran him till the wheels fell off, and now he's hurt and he's not the same. He may not be the same player, and things go up in the air. And this is why I say, with people ask me all the time at this time of year, they're asking me about Tillery and this player and that player.
Yeah.
Are we going to resign him? Are we going to resign him? And I always say, let the season play out, because we still have until week 18 in the playoffs. If we'll see what happens with the playoff picture. I said the P word, but not in connection with the Raiders. But let's see what happens with the end of the season. We still have some weeks to go. Let it play out, and we'll see. And I'll have a better answer for you, because right now you're not thinking about resigning guys. You're thinking about winning the next football game. As far as Jacobs is concerned, yeah, I would say it's a little over 50-50, but I'm leaning toward now he stays, just because of how the Raiders offenses perform with him.
Absolutely. and because of the uncertainty at other positions too. And you have the opportunity to go out and draft, improve that defense. I think they'll spend a lot of time on that defense because there's so many needs on defense.
Look at it this way: if Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow were healthy and the Raiders are able to go back and forth between the pass game and the run game, I would still stick to my prediction that Josh Jacobs is gone, because then you would look at him and say, well, the Raiders can win without him. He's expendable. Right. But right now, the way the offense is set up with the injuries to Renfrow and Waller, he is nowhere near expendable. He's a necessity. He's an essential right now. So you don't get rid of an essential playmaker.
Right. Although, to talk the 40% of your equation there, when you're talking about 60-40, if those guys do come back and they go on a run here at the end of the year and they make him less not relevant. What's the word I'm looking for? Less essential. Thank you. Then they might look at it and say, look, great year. We're happy. Thank you so much. But we're not going to pay $14 million. It all depends. But they still, or they look at Waller and say, hey, dude, you're not really available that much. This guy was available all season, if he is, and say, you know what? We're going to make a choice here. Yeah, see you later, Waller. We're going to keep Jacobs. I mean, that's what it could come down to.
I'll ask, and you just pointing to it right there. I'll ask you a question. I'll ask any of our listeners out there a question. If you're hearing me out there, if there was an ultimatum, if it came down to it, would you rather keep Josh Jacobs at 15-16 million or Darren Waller at his current contract? If you had to keep one or the other, I would say Josh Jacobs is the one I keep. And that's why I keep bringing up the point that if Waller doesn't come back and plays at a high level, I would not be surprised if the Raiders trade him.
Exactly. No, I'm there with you. I think that's a no-brainer. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Actually. All right. Donald, thank you for your message there. And we're running out of time now. So we didn't do a full mailbag, but we wanted to make sure we got some of your messages in there as well. Well, Mo, what do you have for tomorrow night's game? This Raiders team, you said it might be a close game throughout. How do you see this one working out for Las Vegas and Los Angeles?
I see Raiders with a convincing win. I say that with a sigh because anytime I expect a lot of the Raiders, they underwhelm. But I think with them on this streak, I think they've again found their winning formula with Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams being the focal points of the offense. I think they win decisively in a 27-17 victory. Again, I think the first 45 minutes of the game will be competitive, but the Raiders get a turnover and break the game wide open with a late score.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're going to pull away at the end. I think the fourth quarter, I think this team is playing so much better in that fourth quarter than they have earlier in the season. And it's really been the hallmark, really, in the last couple of years. Overtime, of course. They won 2 games in overtime. So you can count that as the fifth quarter if you want. But I think later they just get warmed up. They seem to gain more confidence as the game goes on. And I think as good as that Rams defense can still be, I think if you get Josh Jacobs out there, you wear them down over the course of it, and I think they wear down in that fourth quarter because they don't have the depth they usually have, and the Raiders pull away. I like that 24 to 27 point range with the Rams being either 17 or 20 points, somewhere around there. So it'll be kind of close, but I think it's one of those games that might be close in score, but when you look at the stat sheet and if you watch the game, it won't be as close as it appears. All right, Mo, we're going to rejoin one another late Thursday night after the game, so we'll get to talk about our prediction and whether or not it came true, and then we'll do that live and end the week on Thursday for once instead of Sunday.
With my buddy Murph. I haven't seen Murph in over a month, so it'll be fun to have his energy on the show as always. I've been watching you guys, so fun to have him with me again, not with me, but virtually with me again to talk about the Raiders after, hopefully, a W.
I know. How about 2 weeks in a row and Murph is on location? First, he's in Pensacola, Florida, right by the beach. And then on this Sunday night, he was down in Tunica, Mississippi at the Bet MGM Sportsbook. I mean, this guy is living the charmed life.
Yeah, I gotta get like Murph when I grow up.
He'll be back in the fan cave. That's why I told him he's in the casino. I'm like, dude, your backgrounds. It's the fan cave at home, which is the best in all of Raider media. And then now you're at the beach the week before, and now you're in this cool casino with all these big TVs with football behind you. So, yeah, we appreciate him. We look forward to it. All right, Mo, we'll talk to you on Thursday.
All right, women over 150 pounds, forget about Miss Hopkins. Keep your men warm during the winter. We appreciate you.
Oh my goodness. Forget about Miss Hopkins. The way she can stretch, I don't know that I can. All right. For Mo Moten, I am Scott Branson. Make sure you subscribe to the Silver and Black Today podcast. If you have any other Raider fans in your family, in your friend circle, let them know to subscribe to the show. Mo and I would greatly appreciate that. And the folks at Odyssey Sports will continue to hear Raider Nation because we are the third ranked podcast in their entire network. And that is a testament to the great fans that make up Raider Nation. All right, we'll be back. Murph, Mo, and Scott on Thursday night after the game, tomorrow night after the Rams and the Raiders. Take care of one another, everybody out there, and we will talk to you tomorrow night.